Now let us go back a little and discuss another important aspect of the film, the music. Until then, HMV was the pioneer and the leader in the music records market. A new company called Polydor started business in 1970. It was a new entrant into the film market, and Ramesh Sippy gave the music rights to Polydor. There was another reason that he gave it to Polydor. Polydor's owner, Shashi Patel, was Ramesh Sippy's wife Geeta's brother, and so the records were given to them. Polydor was so confident that they released 30,000 records, which was the double of their usual launch 2 months prior to the release of the film. Let us see a little later as to what happened to the record sales. Now, let's go back to the release of the film. Those days, only Minerva Theatre had the big screen to release a 70mm print of Sholay. It was also called the Pride of Maharashtra. It was the only theatre with a 6-track sound system with about 1500 seats. I think it must have been the largest cinema hall in the country. On the 14th of August, the Sippys held 2 premiere shows. That is one day prior to the release. All the cast and crew, the press, everyone was present. Jaya was again pregnant with Abhishek. The whole crew was excited. It was raining heavily outside. The Sippys were very tensed. Why? The 70mm print had not yet arrived. It was stuck in the customs. The Indian High Command in Delhi had some issues with the Sippys. People were waiting. Finally, GP Sippys chipped in and spoke to the Information and Broadcasting Minister, Mr. V.C. Shukla. Then Mr. Shukla called the customs and asked them to release the prints immediately. The customs officials even then delayed a bit, though they were taken back by the influence of GP Sippy. But the print arrived very late and the guests only saw the 35mm print. The 70mm print arrived only around 1 o'clock in the night, but the whole crew was waiting to see the film. After all, this is what they toiled for. The film finished at around 4 in the morning. The next morning, Ramesh woke up with another tension. The press did not like the film. They said Sholay had aped Hollywood films. Some said it was neither here nor there. Most of them were harsh on the film. They simply ripped it apart. Nobody liked Amjad's voice. They called the film Cholay. India Today called it Dead Ember. It was a flawed attempt, said the Filmfare. The trade guide called it a milestone but gave the film negative comments. The Sippys thought that now it was up to the audience to decide the fate of the film. Sholay released on August 15, 1975 with 40 prints in Bombay territory. The heavy rains continued in Bombay. The advance booking opened and people bought tickets, but there was no reaction. On Friday, Ramesh Sippy drove from one theatre to another, but reports were mixed. The film pundits had already dismissed the film and given their verdict. Now, the black marketers were apprehensive to buy the tickets and sell them. They were dismissing Sholay as a second-rate film. Slowly, panic was setting in the Sippy household. Everyone was predicting that the film was a disaster. They waited for Saturday. Still, there was no reaction. On Sunday morning, they convened a meeting in Amitabh Bachchan's house. The Sippys and the artist and the crew, Salim, Javed, all of them met there. After Zanjeer and Diwar, Amitabh had become a very big star, and in Sholay, he was one of the stars. So they wondered whether the audience did not like Jay dying. A lot of suggestions came and a lot of postmortem was done. Some thought that the ending must be rewritten and reshot, with Jay and Radha walking hand in hand. But Salim and Javed did not want the film to be touched. After listening to everyone, Ramesh Sippy decided that he will not change anything in the film. He would either swim or sink with the film. Monday opened with a lukewarm response. Not even 50% of the theatres were full. There were very few people in the queue as well. Printing was going on in Film Centre. Ramesh Sippy immediately walked in and told them to stop making more prints. He said he was in a confusion. He did not know what was happening. That night, he told his wife Geeta that he had failed. The film had flopped, but GP Sippy stood ground. He was sure that the film would turn around. But at the back of his mind, he was worried about the financial constraints he would face and the amount of debts he had to pay. And the film had overshot its budget, and they may not even be able to make another film in a long time. People started murmuring that the Sippys would maybe even leave the country. On August 22nd, Sholay was released in Bangalore, but in the first week itself, collections started falling. Amitabh was shooting along with Shashi Kapoor in Kashmir for Kabhi Kabhi. He literally cried on Shashi's shoulder. Sholay was a film which was very special for him and Jaya. They had an emotional bonding with the film. The person worst affected was Amjad Khan. It was his first film and it had flopped. His career became a big question mark. When Asrani visited him, he was sober, quiet, and very sad. He said, "I have given my all to this film and see what has happened." But Asrani was optimistic. He said, "People are appreciating your performance. But still, where will I get offers?" was what Amjad said. Only Salim and Javed were still hopeful that the film will pull through. The trade guide carried an article called Evaluation Sholay and said that the producers must learn what not to do by looking at this film. There was an atmosphere of gloom in the Sippy household. By midweek, the proprietor of Geeta Cinema called Ramesh. He said, "Your film will be a hit." Ramesh heard that word for the first time. He asked him, "How can you say?" The proprietor said, "The sales of the cool drinks and popcorn in the interval have gone down badly." Ramesh wanted to know what had that got to do with the film being a hit. The proprietor explained that people were awed at what they saw. They did not want to come out during interval also and miss the film. For the first time, Ramesh understood that the silence of the audience was not rejection but a stunned appreciation of the film. He knew that Sholay had finally found its audience. Word of mouth spread slowly and steadily. The dialogue and sound were epic. When Veeru flipped the coin, people used to get up from their seats to see where the coin had fallen. The sound effects were so good. They had never seen or heard anything like this before in any other film. The theatres were running full houses and Sholay was proving all the cinema pundits wrong. But there was another major problem to be sorted out for Polydor. Sholay was their biggest client, but the sale of records was very slow. Even after the film became a hit, the sales was only 40%. They even set up stalls in theatres where they sold records at a discounted price. But still sales did not pick up. They would be doomed if the sales did not pick up. They sent their marketing people to do a survey. There was a huge repeat audience for the film, and the people were repeating the dialogues as they came out of the theatres. But they did not look at the song records. Suddenly, Polydor got an idea. What if we make a record with the key dialogues of the film? It was a new attempt. Still, they could try. They cut a record for 58 minutes of the best dialogues in Sholay, with predominantly Amjad's dialogues. The records sold like hot cakes. They couldn't keep pace with the sales. They sold more than 5 lakh records and cassettes. Finally, the tide had turned and the people's verdict was final. Sholay had become a hit. The queues at advance booking counter stretched for kilometers. The bus stop outside Minerva was renamed as Sholay Stop. Sushil Mehra, the manager of Minerva, literally stayed at the counter from morning to night. Finally, he had to shift his family into the theatre on the upper floor. Down south in Bangalore, special buses plied from Ramanagaram to Bangalore to the theatres where Sholay was playing. Every villager wanted to see the film. After all, it was shot on their land. They felt an emotional connect. Some enterprising bus operators offered a Sholay ticket along with the bus fare. It was a good bargain for many. They need not wait again at the theatres to buy tickets. Through the rains, people thronged the theatres. There was euphoria. They were euphoric. They mouthed every dialogue of the film. Some even mimicked the sound effects. The black marketers sold tickets at 200 rupees. Until then, no ticket was sold for more than 100 rupees. The balcony ticket in those days was only 15 rupees. All through this stupendous success, There was one man who was sad, and it was Mac Mohan. He did not take his family to see the film. He had seen the rush and knew that his portion was completely cut and he had only one dialogue in the film. But one day, as he was driving and his car stopped, people started calling him Areo Samba and thronged him for autographs. It happened in several places. He just couldn't believe it. He thought maybe Ramesh had added some more portions of his in the film. So he finally took his family to Minerva for an evening show. He was mobbed and had to come on stage for everyone to see him. At the end of the show, the crowd was so unmanageable that the manager had to call the police and Mac Mohan was ushered from the back entrance. To this day, he recalls, "Kabhi soch nahi sakta tha. I could never imagine." The magic of Sholay caught on, and after 10 weeks, it was declared a hit. On 11th October 1975, it was already a blockbuster in Delhi, UP, Bengal, Central India, and Hyderabad. All the characters were household names by now, but Gabbar loomed the largest. People loved him the most. What people thought the film's weakest character was the most favored one. Amjad had become an overnight celebrity and was flooded with offers. He started charging a whooping 11 lakhs per film, but never again he did work with Salim and Javed. Asrani and Amjad were working in a film and they had to drive for about 40 kilometers to reach the airport. Amjad's son was thirsty. They stopped at a small shack on the highway. As they sipped their cool drinks, suddenly they heard a voice, "Kitne aadmi the?" on a rickety gramophone recorder. Amjad stood still on listening to his own voice. There was nothing else in the vicinity, not a soul. The records had reached even the most remote places. Amjad sat on the road and cried that day. Sholay ran for 5 years at Minerva. Even in the 240th week, it ran houseful. The Sippys had to forcefully discontinue Sholay to release their own film, Shan. In spite of all the success, at the Filmfare Awards, Sholay got only an award for the best story. Diwar bagged many awards, but still Sholay was the undisputed leader at the box office. It garnered 35 crores and was Bollywood's best rerun film. It released more than 5 times in Minerva. There was a joke that Sippys re-released Sholay every time their coffers dipped. On the Diamond Jubilee celebrations of Sholay, the Sippys gifted Dwarka Divecha a Fiat car. The main cast received gold bracelets crowned with a diamond stud. So Sholay became a forever film. My research about this film was based on several interviews on the internet, on the YouTube, and primarily from a wonderful book written by Anupama Chopra about Sholay. I thank all of them for this. If you like our videos and channel, please like and subscribe.